critical thinking? Critical thinking is the ability to solve problems, make products that are valued in a particular culture. Be flexible, creative, and original. Thinking about thinking. Locate the appropriate route to a goal. Capture and transmit knowledge. Express values and the feelings appropriately.
Oh, I'd like to begin telling you that my first step as professor of this class would be getting rid of the standard, boring textbook. Now that I just saved you over $100 in a textbook, I certainly have your attention. So how are we going to teach this class? We're going to instruct the class with practical examples and associate them with clips of movies and using different activities that help the student utilize their critical thinking skills by challenging them with a group participation. Our goals for teaching this class are, number one, asking questions and looking for answers. 2, apply. Help the students apply what they learn to solve problems. Now that you know, how do you solve? And number 3, listen. Listen to each other and debate ideas. How does this relate to the text, the video, or even the class itself? Things that we do foresee as problems would be short class periods, engaged activities usually require a lot of time, and too many students. It is very difficult to have everyone get involved every time. That is why video would be a great idea because it involves everyone. Let's first look at some examples of a group project that we would use to incorporate into our lesson plan.
One of your classes requires students to complete a group project worth 50% of their final grade. You're put into a group with 4 other students. At your first meeting, one of your group members says, "Listen, I've done this whole group project thing before and it's a real pain in the butt. Nobody really likes working with other people, and we all just end up fighting anyway. It's too hard to split up the parts of the project. No one's ever happy with their part. Last time I had to do one of these things, we decided that each of us would just do the whole project. Then we shared our reports and voted on the best one. That's the one we turned into the professor. We should do the same thing for this class." Is this a good argument? Do you agree with all of the claims he made? Do those claims necessarily lead to his conclusion about how to handle the project? Should you go along with your classmate? Or is there a better way to handle the project? Remember, 50% of your final grade is at stake here. Your classmate has had certain experiences that make him believe that doing group project work separately, as individuals, is better than dividing up the tasks among the group. If you simply accept his belief without question, without thinking about it critically, you may come to share his belief simply as an inherited opinion.
Now, does this sound familiar? By putting them in groups, we would allow them to think critically about how to complete the project. And I'm sure some of these scenarios have come up in your group project.
It's smarter to travel in groups.
I want you to watch this short little clip from the movie Good Will Hunting. This is a great example of a student that cannot utilize critical thinking skills. As a professor, you would be providing a great disservice to the student if you just have them memorized directly from the book.
I was just hoping you might give me some insight into the evolution of the market economy in the southern colonies. My contention is that prior to the Revolutionary War, the economic modalities, especially in the southern colonies, could most aptly be characterized as agrarian pre-capital.
All right, of course that's your
Hang on a
contention.
second.
You're a first-year grad student. You just got finished reading some Marxian historian, Pete Garrison probably. You're gonna be convinced of that till next month when you get to James Lemon. Then you're gonna be talking about how the economies of Virginia and Pennsylvania were entrepreneurial and capitalist way back in 1740. That's gonna last until next year. You're gonna be in here regurgitating Gordon Wood, talking about, the pre-revolutionary utopia and the capital forming effects of military mobilization.
Well, as a matter of fact, I won't, because Wood drastically underestimates the impact
Wood
of social
drastically underestimates the impact of social distinctions predicated upon wealth, especially inherited wealth. You got that from Vickers. Work in Essex County, page 98, right? Yeah, I read that too. Were you gonna plagiarize the whole thing for us? Do you have any thoughts of your own on this matter?
Wow, right? Would you like to be the guy in the ponytail plagiarizing all what he learned from reading a textbook? Or would you rather be the guy in the bar that learned the same information but was able to utilize his critical thinking skills by forming his own thoughts and opinions of the subject matter?
But is that your thing? You come into a bar, you read some obscure passage, and then pretend you pawn it off as your own idea just to impress some girls, embarrass my friend? See, the sad thing about a guy like you is in 50 years, you're gonna start doing some thinking on your own, and you're gonna come up with the fact that there are two certainties in life. One, don't do that. And two, you dropped 150 grand on a fucking education you could have got for $1.50 in late charges at the public library.
Yeah, but I will have a degree. And you'll be serving my kids fries at a drive-thru on our way to a skiing trip.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but at least I won't be unoriginal. But I mean, if you have a problem like that, we could just step outside. We could figure it out.
Oh man, there's no problem. It's cool.
It's cool?
Yeah.
Cool. Fucking damn right it's cool. How you like me now? My boy's wicked smart.
So, what did you think? Matt Damon explained to this Harvard graduate student some essential techniques on critical thinking. Did you pay attention to them? Even though the Harvard student did graduate with a degree, will he still be able to use critical thinking in the real world? Or better yet, as a professor?
As a professor, we want the students to think deeply about the material we are teaching them. Very few professors help the student develop critical thinking skills. The most common denominator of instructors that do reinforce critical thinking skills are: 1, they are well informed and very passionate about the subject matter, and 2, they do not teach at the class, but to the class.
I should have beat that old bitch's ass.
Do you like apples?
Yeah.
Well, I got a number. How do you like them apples?
As professors of this class, we would use the following characteristics in order for us to be successful. 1 is challenging our students to know, not to memorize. Question, examine, create, solve, interpret, and of course, debate. Make the students think about what they learn. And of course, apply the materials to real situations, as in videos and group projects. And lastly, encourage the students to learn independently.
So, how do other professors at Tarrant County in college use critical thinking by incorporating it into their lessons. Make sure you pay close attention and identify similar techniques and to see if they have any differences. Now we'll be watching a few videos on some professors to see their idea of critical thinking.
Secondly, critical thinking. I teach English, so critical thinking for me in the freshman level classes that I teach in my discipline means first and foremost getting my students to have the confidence to believe in their ability to think their own thoughts, believe in the ability to use their brains to determine that they have something of value to say. So we start that process by looking at what others have written, studying how others create valid arguments, how others express themselves, talking about what works in those instances, what doesn't work in those instances, building those tools and understanding how others have done it. And once we're equipped with that understanding, once we're equipped with the tools of how to communicate, then getting them to believe that they can build from there. So for me, a big part of it is a confidence issue, especially at the freshman level, getting my students to understand how that type of communication takes place, why something is working in that form of communication, why it's not, and getting them to believe in their ability to say something of value themselves.
News is, I think that in the English discipline, it's really easy to incorporate critical thinking in the classroom. I think it's just a natural part of what we do in English classes, because so much of what we do is about reading and responding to texts, and not just responding in the sense that you say what you feel about it, but you have a reasoned response and you have to be able to explain why you respond the way that you do. So in my English classes, you know, it's not enough just to tell me, I read this poem and this is what it made me feel. You know, you have to say, well, what about the poem? Why did it make you feel that way? How did it make you feel that way? How did its use of language and form and sound, you know, evoke that response in you? And or like a couple of weeks ago, I was just telling one of my colleagues that I had one of the best classroom experiences I've ever had with an English 1301 class, because my students all they were doing was comparing two student essays, actual essays that two students had written. One was obviously an A paper, one was obviously an F paper. And even the students in my class who can say to me, I'm a horrible writer, they also could easily identify which one was the A paper and which one's the F paper, but they had to think about and structure an answer that could articulate why one was stronger than the other. So why, you know, one paper had a stronger use of evidence, like backed up their arguments with evidence, and here are the places where they used evidence, and here are the places where this paper needed evidence and didn't have it. Or, you know, this one was clearly written for the right kind of audience, and here's where this one was not writing for the right kind of audience. And I don't know why, and they just had so much fun saying what was good about one paper and what was not effective about the other paper. And I don't think that they're all going to write an A paper on their first attempt because of that exercise, but I think that they do all have a clearer concept of not just what, you know, this one's better and that one's not as good, but really what goes into writing a stronger and more effective academic argument. So those are the kinds of things that we can do in an English class that make it really easy to incorporate, you know, critical thinking on a pretty much daily basis. So.
Shaladan, he's just practicing for his cousin's birthday party.
As I was saying, empty box, empty cylinder, and voila.
I'm telling you, dude, there's a seat on the Hogwarts Express with your name on it.
This is how you're going to entertain your little cousin and his friends? By lying to them?
How is this lying?
Well, magic show is an inherently deceitful proposition. This is an ordinary top hat. You've chosen that card freely. I do not have a set of lockpicks lodged in my keister.
Can't you just enjoy the wonder, Sheldon? Why must you peek behind the curtain or rub the butt?
If we poison the critical thinking faculties of children by telling them that rabbits come out of hats, then we create adults who believe in astrology and homeopathy and that Ryan Reynolds was a better choice for Green Lantern than lovable rogue Nathan Fillion.
Throughout this movie, we play small little commercials to help you identify that working in groups, group projects is a great technique that allows us, as a professor, to evoke critical thinking skills by making you work with different ideas from several different individuals and make you think outside the box. We've also showed you some great visual aids in the form of movies and clips to help you as a student correlate what we are teaching to something with which they can identify. We hope you've enjoyed our movie, but before we go, I would like to give you one last critical thinking exercise. I want you to think long and hard because there will be a test after this movie.
Is water wet? And I'll repeat that again, and I want you to think about that for a moment. Seems simple, but maybe not so simple. Is water wet? And let that process for a moment. Now, it may seem simple. And like I said, the overwhelming answer that I get is, of course, water is wet. I mean, what kind of question is that? But before you jump to that conclusion, I want you to think about it. Water makes things wet. When you throw a rock in water, the rock is wet. You spill water on your homework and your paper and the ink, everything is all wet. You jump in a pool, dog jumps in the water, hair gets wet. When you jump in the pool, your body gets wet, your shorts and shirt and everything gets wet. However, is water itself actually wet? See, now if you think about that, that really is not as simple as it may sound. And people say, well, they'll say, well, if you put such and such in water, it'll show that water is wet. But if you think about that question in itself or that statement in itself, is showing that whatever is being wet comes after the water.
Okay, it's on now.
Yes.
Okay, first of all, Aaron Hodges, I believe it's pronounced, is an amazing student. Don't delete this from the clip. The world needs to know.
I don't know. From a college textbook. You remember the college textbook that I threw away? Oh, you took it out. Here, hit it again.
Graduated with a degree. Will he be able to use critical thinking skills in the real world? Or what? So, what did you think? Matt Damon explained to this Harvard graduate student.
Harvard. The most common denominator of instructors that do reinforce.
Good grief, what is wrong with you?
All right. Is this, I cannot read your handwriting.